In this presentation, we will continue on with our discussion of attribute sampling applied to test of controls, this time considering evaluation. Recalling that when conducting a statistical sample for test of controls, auditing standards require the auditor to properly plan, perform, and evaluate the sampling application and to adequately document each phase of the sampling application. Those phases: plan, perform, evaluate, document. We now have considered plan and perform and are now on evaluate. In other words, we've planned the attribute sampling process and then we've actually performed the procedures. Now we're going to evaluate the results. So within the evaluation section, we're going to do the task or perform the task of calculate the sample deviation in upper deviation rates and decide the final conclusion. So we're going to come to a conclusion on the results here. Let's go into these in more depth. Calculate the sample deviation and upper deviation rates. When audit procedures are completed, the auditor will summarize the deviations for each control tested and evaluate the results. For example, if there's a deviation of 2 deviations in a sample of 80, so we had a full sample of 80, that's how many things that we tested, we found 2 deviations. In our example, we're talking about if we have some purchase document that we're testing for a check of controls indicated by an initial, then we have found the initials. We didn't find the initials on 2 items. Those are going to be the deviations out of the 80. The deviation rate in the sample would then be 2.5%, or 2, the deviations, divided by 80, the sample that we had. The upper deviation rate is the sum of the sample deviation rate and allowance for sampling risk. And then we're going to decide on the final conclusion. So the auditor compares the tolerable deviation rate to the computed upper deviation rate, and then we're going to say whether or not we accept this internal control as being a good internal control or not.